Bitch, I'm big too. Uh, uh. Boy, this you possess to be fat. Ain't lying. What's motherfucking up? What's up, my nigga? What's good, my people? I've been in my motherfucking shell. I've been in my rock. I've been living. I've been enjoying life. As you should. As you motherfuckers should. What's up, my good peoples? Welcome back to another episode of Authentically Love. I'm your host, Roof the Truth, and we back with another fucking banger. This episode right here is gonna be a game changer. I'm telling you now, lock in twin before you tweak out. Before I tweak out on you. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to Authentically Love, the podcast where we dive deep into the real, the raw, and the transformative conversations that help us live a more authentic life. I'm your host, Ruth the Truth, and today's episode is one that I feel, let's say, deeply passionate about: setting boundaries. We're going to be talking about setting boundaries for healthy relationships. Here on Authentically Love, our motto is where honesty meets heart and every truth empowers. And let me tell you, boundaries are important, one of the most empowering truths that you can embrace, man. It's not just romantic relationships. It's literally every relationship that you can think of, whether it's your family, once again, your coworkers, once again, and even boundaries for yourself. Like, we always forget about them boundaries for ourselves. So, today's episode, we are going to explore what boundaries are, why they're essential for healthy relationships, and how to set and maintain those boundaries. Plus, as always, I got to share my own personal story of setting boundaries. And it was one that I thought could possibly destroy our relationship, but it ended up strengthening it in ways that I never imagined. So, without further ado, let's jump right into. Okay. So, let's start with the basics. What are boundaries? And it's not just about keeping people out or building walls up. It's about defining what's okay and what's not okay for you in relationships. Because boundaries protect your mental, they protect your emotional, and they even protect your physical well being. Like, say, when we don't have boundaries, right? We often find ourselves feeling drained. We feel ourselves feeling resentful. We feel ourselves feeling taken advantage of, and the list goes on. It's a whole lot of negative feelings that comes with not implementing boundaries. And the truth is, you can't show up as your best self in anything, any relationship, if you're constantly running on empty. So I want you to think of boundaries as like invisible lines that guide how others like interact with you, right? And it's also how you interact with them. These guidelines create a space where respect, trust, and mutual understanding can grow. Now that we know what boundaries are, let's talk about how to set and maintain them, right? So, as always, we all know, well, I'm not going to say we all because some people like to beat around the bush. Some people like to draw out the story and like to give a whole bunch of unnecessary details, right? So, for this one, I want you to be clear and direct. People can't respect your boundaries if they don't know that they exist. Like when setting a boundary, be honest and be specific about what you need. We not worried about nobody else right now. We worried about on what you want, on what you need, not even what you want. We worried about what you need. Okay? Be clear and be direct. Next thing I want you to do when setting boundaries, I want you to use I statements. This helps keeps the conversation focused on your needs rather than sounding accusatory. Like for example, instead of saying, "You always take advantage of me," try saying, "I feel overwhelmed when I don't have time to recharge." It's not put that statement right there, it don't put the blame on that other person. It puts the focus on self. Like, I'm overwhelmed because I haven't been able to recharge. Next one would be start small. So we all know setting boundaries, if you've never done it before, it can be kind of intimidating. So I want you to set a boundary around how often. Start small. You can set a boundary about how often you check your phone at work. Like that's small. It's healthy. It's it's a boundary for yourself. Like I'm not going to check my phone because that's what I told myself I'm not going to do. You was clear and you was conscious, or you was clear and direct, and you used them I statements. I'm going to put my phone down while I'm at work. But that's only for those that don't or never set boundaries in your life. If you've set boundaries before, then you can skip that one. But for your boundaries, I want you to be consistent. And as we all know, have seen, I struggle with being consistent. That's okay. I'm human. This is my journey. But when you're not consistent, your boundaries tend to lose their power. They tend to not hold as much weight, right? Because they're not enforced. So if you say no to something, you gotta stand 10 toes on that bit. You gotta stick with it. People will respect your boundaries more often when they see that you respect them too. Because if you're not respecting your boundaries or yourself, how can you expect somebody else to respect you and your boundaries and yourself? It just it's not adding up. That one right there is 1 + 1 = 5, and that ain't it, boss. That ain't it. We gotta be consistent. And I'm really talking to myself on this one because I'm struggling. I'm struggling real bad. It's be a whole lot of I just don't feel like it. So I gotta find the mm, it keeps me motivated even when I don't feel like it, or keeps me determined, keeps me steadfast. But another question, if you made it this far, all right. Now, let me share a personal story about how setting boundaries with my person has completely like transformed our relationship. For a very long time, I avoided setting boundaries because I thought it would create distance between us. And I was also afraid of saying no or expressing what I needed because I didn't want to feel rejected or like pushed away, right? But over time, I started feeling emotionally drained, man. I was giving so much of myself that at a point I had no energy for me. Nothing for me, nothing for nobody else. I'm just existing, right? So I remember this moment. It was very intense, it was very passionate. And basically, I needed to set a boundary, which was that our communication has to improve, or I can't continue doing this. Like I'm making it a priority to talk to you. I need the same in return, or I need you to give me some form of reciprocity. And that conversation, it opened up the door for both of us to be completely transparent about how we've both been feeling because we've both been holding on to things that neither one of us wanted to fess up or speak up about because of our past. And I thought that like by putting my foot down and saying that this is my requirement while in this relationship, I thought it was going to push her away. I thought that she was going to dip because this was foreign for me. I've never implemented boundaries before. I was a pushover. I let people just do whatever they wanted and they always got their way. It's it's like I was terrified because I really rocked with this woman, but she completely surprised me with her response. And instead of putting really like the blame on me or whatnot, she did take accountability and she started slowly but surely implementing them changes. And that conversation has changed the trajectory of our relationship because instead of weakening our connection, setting that boundary strengthened it. It allowed us to have deeper conversations about what we both needed from each other, how we needed each other to show up in the relationship, and how we can show up and support each other further in the future. And this experience alone, it has taught me that boundaries are not about pushing people away because in my mind, I thought that boundaries meant go ghost. Bye bye, out of sight, out of mind. It's real over here. I'm trying to tell you. If you ain't in my orbit, I'm sorry. I'm not thinking about you. And I know the same is for you too, because out of sight, out of mind is real for a lot of us. We are sea creatures. We've became that. We've adapted to that. But this experience with my woman has been amazing. It's a lot of growth. It's a lot of learning, it's a lot of triggers, but it's the it's the foundation, I guess you could say, for a healthy relationship, because that's what we both want. That's what we all want. We all want healthy relationships. That healthy relationship, it don't start with that person. It start with you. You got to be healthy on the inside. And I'm not just talking about romance either. Like my day one, she become one of my closest friends. We talk dang there every day, and I be like, just be talking to her about different stuff, about either like how I can be a better person, how I can show up better within my friendships. Like, and if I set this boundary, will it make or break a relationship? And a lot of times when I have attempted to set boundaries, it broke them relationships. So it made me not want to set boundaries. It made me be a settler. 2025, we are not settling for a fuck thing. Excuse my French, but y'all already know what the fuck going on over here. We not settling for nothing. So, what is the key takeaway for today's episode? Right? I want you to remember this and I want it to stick. Boundaries are an act of love, both for you and for the people around you, right? They help protect your energy, they communicate your needs, and they create healthier, more authentic relationships. And if setting boundaries feels uncomfortable at first, that's okay. That's with anything. Everything is uncomfortable at first. But trust me, the more that you do it, the more confident that you become, the more empowered that you'll feel. And it's a skill that any of us can have. It just takes practice. Before you dip out, I want you to remember that you're not mean, you're not a bitch, you're not selfish, you're not an asshole for setting boundaries. You are honoring yourself and creating space for healthier connections. And that is something that you should be proud of. Well, that's about it for today's episode of Authentically Love. I hope this conversation inspired you to take a closer look at your own boundaries and how they're shaping your relationships. Next week, we are going to be diving into conflict resolution strategies, which is another essential skill for building strong, authentic connections. And I don't think you want to miss this one. As always, remember where honesty meets heart and every truth empowers. Thank you for listening, for showing up for yourself, and for being part of this amazing community. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a review. You can also connect with others on the same journey by joining our Facebook group. The link is down below. But until next time, peace, love, and hair grease.